Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the survey ship Maverick and stared at the strange readings on his scanner. 3 weeks into their deep space mission, and they had found something that should not exist. The object was massive and metallic and drifting in the empty space between two dead star systems where nothing should be. "Lisa, what are you seeing on the science station?" Jake asked his chief science officer, who was bent over her instruments with a confused look on her face. "Doctor." Lisa Chun looked up from her console and shook her head slowly. "Captain, this thing is huge. The scanner says it is almost 15 kilometers long and made of materials I have never seen before. The metal composition does not match anything in our database, and it appears to be very old." Security Chief Tony Rodriguez moved closer to the main screen where the image of the derelict ship appeared. The vessel looked like nothing in human space or in any of the alien databases they carried. It had smooth curved surfaces that seemed to flow into each other like liquid metal that had been frozen in time. Strange symbols covered its hull, and they seemed to glow with a faint blue light even though the ship appeared dead. "How old are we talking about?" Jake asked while studying the alien vessel. Lisa ran more scans, and her expression grew more puzzled. "The metal decay patterns suggest this ship has been drifting for millions of years, Captain. But that is impossible, because the materials should have broken down completely by now. Whatever this thing is made of, it defies our understanding of physics." Engineer Sam Parker joined them on the bridge and whistled softly when he saw the readings. "Captain, I have been working on ships for 20 years, and I have never seen anything like this. The power signatures are completely dead, but there are some strange energy patterns deep inside the hull. It is like the ship is sleeping rather than destroyed." Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he looked at the mysterious vessel. In all his years exploring space, he had learned to trust his instincts and write. Now they were telling him this discovery would change everything. "Tony, what is our tactical situation?" he asked. "We are alone out here, Captain. No other ships for several light years in any direction. If we are going to investigate this thing, now would be the time to do it," Tony replied while checking his security screens. "Lisa, can you detect any life signs aboard that ship?" Jake asked. The science officer ran deep scans and frowned at her. "Results: no life signs, Captain, but there is something strange. The ship interior appears to have atmosphere, and the temperature reads normal for human habitation. That should be impossible after millions of years in space." Sam studied the engineering data and shook his head in amazement. "Captain, the ship still has power. Not much, but enough to maintain basic life support systems. Whatever technology they used, it is far beyond anything we have ever encountered." Jake made his decision. "We are going aboard. Lisa, I want you to lead the science team and document everything you find. Tony, you and your security team will provide protection. Sam, I need you to analyze their technology and see if we can understand how it works." "Sir, are you sure that is wise?" Tony asked with concern in his voice. "We have no idea what we might find aboard that ship or what killed the original crew." "That is exactly why we need to investigate," Jake replied. "This could be the greatest discovery in human history. We cannot pass up this opportunity." A away team prepared their equipment and boarded the shuttle that would take them to the alien vessel. As they approached, the massive ship could see details that the long-range scanners had missed. The hull was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change when he was not looking directly at them. The blue glow from the symbols grew brighter as they got closer. "Captain, I am detecting an opening in the hull," their pilot reported. "It appears to be some kind of docking bay, and it is opening as we approach." "That is impossible," Lisa said from her seat. The ship showed no signs of active systems when we scanned it. The shuttle glided into the alien docking bay and settled onto a landing platform that seemed designed for their small craft. The bay sealed itself behind them, and atmosphere flooded the chamber. When the readings showed the air was safe to breathe, Jake led his team out of the shuttle. The interior of the ship was even more strange than the outside. The walls seemed to be made of the same flowing metal as the hull. They glowed with soft light that had no visible source. The corridors were wide and tall, as if built for beings much larger than humans. Strange symbols covered every surface, and they seemed to pulse with gentle rhythm like a slow heartbeat. "This is incredible," Lisa whispered as she recorded everything. With her instruments, the architecture defies conventional engineering. These walls should not be able to support their own weight, but they show no signs of stress or fatigue. Tony kept his weapon ready as they moved deeper into the ship. "Captain, I do not like this." The ship was dead when we scanned it, but now it seems to be waking up. These lights were not active when we first arrived. Sam was fascinated by the technology around them. The power distribution system is unlike anything I have ever seen. The energy flows through the walls themselves rather than through separate conduits. It is as if the entire ship is one giant circuit. As they explored the vessel, Jake began to notice that the corridors seemed longer than they should be. According to their maps, they should have reached the end of this section already, but the hallway continued ahead of them. The symbols on the walls were changing too, becoming more complex and detailed as they walked. "Lisa, are you getting readings on the size of this ship?" Jake asked. The science officer checked her instruments and looked confused. "Captain, according to my scans, we have walked over 2 kilometers inside the ship, but our external measurements showed it was only 15 kilometers long total. Either our instruments are malfunctioning, or the interior of this ship is larger than the exterior." They entered a vast chamber that stretched beyond the range of their lights. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them, and the walls curved away into shadows. In the center of the room stood a strange structure that looked like a combination of sculpture and machine. It was covered in the same flowing patterns as the walls, but these symbols were moving constantly like living text. "What is that thing?" Tony asked while keeping his weapon trained on the structure. Before anyone could answer, the symbols on the structure began to glow brighter, and a low humming sound filled the chamber. The sound seemed to resonate inside their heads rather than through their ears, and it made them all feel slightly dizzy. "Captain, we should leave," Tony said urgently. "This ship is definitely not as dead as we thought." But Jake found himself drawn to the strange structure. Something about the humming sound and the moving symbols felt familiar, even though he had never seen anything like it before. "Lisa, what are your instruments detecting?" "Massive energy buildup, Captain. Whatever this thing is, it is coming online and the power levels are increasing rapidly." She replied with alarm in her voice, as the humming grew louder. The symbols on the walls throughout the chamber began to change. Instead of the alien script, they had been seeing new symbols appeared. Symbols that looked remarkably similar to human writing. The team watched in amazement as words formed on the walls around them. The words were in English, and they delivered a message that chilled them all. "Welcome, humans. We have been waiting for you for a very long time." The words on the wall glowed brighter, and Jake felt his heart racing as he stared at the impossible message. The humming sound grew stronger and seemed to vibrate through his bones. Tony raised his weapon toward the central structure, but Jake held up his hand to stop him. "Wait," Jake said quietly. "If this thing wanted to harm us, it could have done so already. Let us see what it wants to tell us." More words appeared on the walls around them, and the text seemed to write itself in real time. "Do not fear us humans. We mean you no harm. We are the guardian of this vessel, and we have traveled across the galaxy searching for your kind." Lisa stepped closer to the wall and ran her scanner over the glowing text. "Captain, these symbols are not just appearing on the surface. They are being formed at the molecular level within the metal itself. The technology required for this is beyond anything we understand. Sam was studying the central structure with fascination and fear. Captain, I am detecting massive energy flows throughout this entire chamber. This ship has power systems that dwarf anything we have ever built. If this Guardian wanted to destroy us, we would not even know it was happening. The text on the walls changed again and new words formed. You wonder about our power and our purpose. We will explain, but first you must understand that what you see here is only a small part of what we truly are. This ship has been our home for countless ages as we searched the void between stars. Tony kept his weapon ready, but lowered it slightly. Captain, how is this thing communicating with us in perfect English? No alien species we have encountered has learned our language this quickly. Jake studied the flowing text and felt a strange sensation in his mind, as if something was gently probing his thoughts. I think it is reading our minds somehow. That is how it knows our language. Correct human Jake Morrison, the words on the wall replied. We speak directly to your consciousness, rather than using crude vocal sounds. Your species has minds that are unusually open to this form of communication. Most other races cannot hear us at all. The central structure began to change shape, and the flowing metal reformed itself into something that resembled a throne or command chair. The humming sound shifted to a more melodic tone, and Jake found himself feeling calmer despite the strangeness of their situation. We are called Guardian, and we serve as the voice and memory of those who built this vessel. Our creators called themselves the Precursors, and they seeded this galaxy with life long before your son was born. They gave each species they created certain gifts to help them survive and grow. Lisa looked up from her instruments with wide eyes. Captain, if this is true, then we are talking to a representative of the race that created most of the intelligent life in our galaxy. This is the greatest discovery in the history of science. The Guardian continued its explanation, and more details appeared on the walls around them. The Precursors traveled from world to world for millions of years, helping young species take their first steps toward the stars. They were teachers and gardeners who shaped the evolution of countless civilizations. Sam studied the technical readouts his scanner was producing and shook his head in amazement. Captain, this ship appears to be powered by controlled spatial distortions. They are literally bending space and time to generate energy. The physics involved should be impossible. Your species was different from the others, Guardian continued. Most races that the Precursors encountered were given specific gifts. Some received great strength, others received long life or powerful intellects. But humans were given something much more rare and valuable. Jake felt compelled to ask the obvious question. What gift did we receive? The walls around them suddenly displayed images of various alien species and their civilizations. Some were beautiful and advanced, while others appeared primitive or warlike. All of them had clearly defined characteristics that made them unique. Humans were given the gift of adaptation, Guardian explained. Where other species excelled in one area, you learned to excel in all areas when necessary. Where others remained fixed in their nature, you changed and grew to meet whatever challenges you faced. Tony studied the images on the walls and noticed something disturbing. Captain, many of these civilizations look like they are extinct. What happened to them? The images shifted to show the same species in various states of decline or destruction. Some had been conquered by more aggressive neighbors, while others had destroyed themselves through war or environmental damage. A few had simply stagnated and faded away over time. Most species reach a point where their gifts become limitations, Guardian replied. The strong become too proud to learn. The peaceful become too weak to defend themselves. The intelligent become too cold to feel compassion. But humans have shown an ability to avoid these traps. Lisa was recording everything, but she looked troubled by what she was seeing. How many species have you encountered in your travels? How Many have survived to become truly advanced civilizations. The chamber filled with thousands of images showing different alien races and their worlds. The sheer variety of life was overwhelming, but Jake noticed that most of the images showed ruins or empty planets rather than thriving civilizations. "We have encountered over 10,000 species in our long journey," Guardian replied. "Of those, only a few hundred have survived to reach the stars. Of those, only a handful have proven capable of true wisdom. You humans are the first we have found who might be worthy of the Precursor's greatest gift." Sam looked confused. "What is this greatest gift you are talking about? And why do you think we might be worthy of it?" The central structure began to glow brighter, and the metal flowed into new configurations. The chamber itself seemed to expand, and Jake realized they were seeing the ship's true capabilities for the first time. The walls became transparent and showed them the vast interior of the vessel, which stretched for dozens of kilometers in all directions. "The greatest gift is knowledge itself," Guardian explained. "The Precursors discovered secrets of the universe that could elevate any species to godlike power. But such knowledge is dangerous in the wrong hands. It could be used to create or destroy on a cosmic scale." The images on the walls showed civilizations that had clearly possessed incredible technology. Cities that floated in space planets that had been reshaped to suit their inhabitants, and starships that could cross the galaxy in moments. But all of these advanced races were now gone. The Precursors themselves eventually transcended physical existence, Guardian continued. They became one with the cosmic forces they had learned to control. Before they departed, they created us to find species worthy of inheriting their legacy. Jake felt the weight of what Guardian was telling them. "And you think humans might be that species?" "We have been testing your kind for centuries," Guardian replied. "We have observed your wars and your peace, your cruelty and your compassion, your failures and your triumphs. You alone among all the species we have encountered show the balance necessary to handle ultimate power responsibly." Tony was scanning the chamber with his instruments, and his readings showed massive energy signatures throughout the ship. "Captain, I am detecting other ships approaching our position. Multiple contacts coming from different directions, and they are moving fast." The walls displayed new images showing various alien fleets converging on their location. Some of the ships were familiar designs from species humans had encountered before, while others were completely unknown. "They have detected our awakening," Guardian said with what sounded like concern. "Word of our activation will spread quickly through the galaxy. Some will come seeking to claim our technology for themselves, while others will try to destroy us to prevent anyone from gaining such power." Lisa looked worried as she studied the approaching fleets. "Captain, some of those ships belong to the Hegemony and the Trade Consortium. If they get their hands on this technology, the balance of power in the galaxy will shift dramatically." Jake realized their simple survey mission had just become something much more dangerous and important. The fate of not just humanity, but possibly all life in the galaxy might depend on the choices they made in the next few hours. "Guardian," Jake said firmly, "what do we need to do?" Guardian's response came immediately as the walls around them shifted to show detailed maps of the ship's interior. "You must prove that humanity deserves the knowledge of the Precursors. The trials we will give you have been failed by every other species that attempted them. Success will require everything that makes your kind unique." Jake studied the complex layout appearing on the walls and felt his stomach tighten. The ship was far larger than they had imagined, with sections that seemed to fold in on themselves and corridors that defied normal geometry. What kind of trials are we talking about? The chamber began to change around them, and Jake realized the ship was rebuilding itself in real time. Walls flowed like water and reformed into new configurations, while the floor beneath their feet shifted and moved. The central structure divided into 4 separate platforms that began to separate from each other. Each member of your team will face challenges designed to test the qualities that make humans special, Guardian explained. Leadership, courage, intelligence, and creativity will all be measured. But remember that individual success means nothing if you cannot work together. Tony grabbed his weapon tighter as his platform began to move away from the others. Captain, this does not feel right. We should stay together and face whatever this thing throws at us as a team. The trials must be faced individually before. You can succeed as a group, Guardian replied. Do not fear for each other's safety. We will not allow permanent harm to come to any of you. But the challenges you face will be real, and failure will have consequences. Lisa's platform was already several meters away, and moving toward a wall, it opened to reveal a corridor filled with strange machinery. Captain, my instruments are detecting massive energy fluctuations throughout the ship. Whatever these trials are, they will test us beyond anything we have experienced before. Sam's platform moved toward a different section, where the walls were covered with incomprehensible symbols and displays. Captain, I can see technical problems that look impossible to solve with the tools we have available. This Guardian expects us to work miracles. Jake's platform began moving toward yet another area, and he called out to his team. Remember what Guardian said about humanity's greatest strength. We adapt and overcome no matter what obstacles we face. Trust in yourselves and in each other. The platforms carried them into separate sections of the ship, and Jake found himself alone in a corridor that seemed to stretch infinitely in both directions. The walls showed images of human history, from the earliest cave paintings to their first steps into space. Every major decision and turning point in their species' development was displayed around him. Your trial begins now, Jake Morrison. Guardian's voice echoed in his mind. You must demonstrate the leadership that will guide humanity into its cosmic destiny. But remember that true leadership often requires sacrifice. The corridor changed, and Jake found himself standing on the bridge of a starship that looked remarkably similar to his own Maverick. But the crew around him were not his people, and the situation on the main screen was desperate. A human colony was under attack by an alien fleet, and this ship was the only thing standing between the colonists and complete destruction. Captain, what are your orders? The ship's tactical officer asked urgently. The enemy has superior numbers and firepower. If we engage them directly, we will be destroyed, but if we retreat, the colony will be wiped out. Jake realized this was not just a simulation, but some kind of alternate reality, where his decisions would have real consequences. He studied the tactical display and saw that the attacking fleet was massive and well armed, while his ship was alone and outgunned. Meanwhile, Tony found himself in what appeared to be a series of connected chambers, filled with hostile aliens that moved with inhuman speed and coordination. His weapons worked, but every enemy he defeated was replaced by two more. The trial seemed designed to test not just his combat skills, but his ability to think strategically under extreme pressure. Your courage has been noted, Tony Rodriguez, Guardians. Voice spoke to him as he took cover behind a metal barrier. But remember that true bravery is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Sometimes the greatest courage is knowing when not to fight. The enemies attacking him suddenly stopped, and Tony realized they were waiting for him to make a choice. He could continue fighting and probably eventually be overwhelmed, or he could try to find another solution. Looking around the chamber, he noticed that the aliens were protecting something rather than simply trying to kill him. Lisa found herself in a vast laboratory, filled with scientific equipment. It was clearly based on precursor technology. The instruments were beyond anything she had ever seen, but somehow she could understand their basic functions. Complex equations and formulas covered every surface, and she realized she was being asked to solve problems that had puzzled scientists for generations. Your intelligence is impressive, Lisa-chan, Guardian told her. But knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. The solutions you seek require more than logic and calculation. They require understanding of the deeper connections that bind all life. Together, the equations began to shift and change as Lisa worked on them, and she realized that each solution led to new and more complex problems. The technology around her could cure diseases, extend human lifespans, and unlock the secrets of faster-than-light travel. But each breakthrough also revealed potential dangers that could destroy entire civilizations if misused. Sam discovered himself in an engineering nightmare where critical ship systems were failing throughout the vessel. The technology was completely alien but somehow familiar, and he had only basic tools to work with. Every repair he completed seemed to cause new problems elsewhere, and he quickly realized that conventional solutions would not work. Your creativity will be your salvation, Sam Parker, Guardian, explained. The problems you face cannot be solved with standard engineering principles. You must think beyond the limitations of your training and find connections that others would miss. The ship's systems were interconnected in ways that defied normal engineering logic, and Sam began to see that he needed to treat the entire vessel as a single living entity, rather than a collection of separate machines. The solutions required intuitive leaps that went against everything he had been taught about how technology should work. Back on his simulated bridge, Jake made his decision about the colony under attack. Instead of engaging the enemy fleet directly or retreating, he ordered his ship to position itself between the attackers and the colony while broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Vessel Defender," he announced. "I am prepared to discuss terms for the safe evacuation of the civilian population. There is no glory in slaughtering innocents and no profit in destroying empty buildings." The alien fleet hesitated, and Jake pressed his advantage. "You have already demonstrated your superior firepower. Now demonstrate your superior wisdom by allowing these people to leave peacefully." Tony realized that the aliens in his trial were not actually trying to kill him, but were testing his ability to recognize when violence was not the answer. He lowered his weapon and approached the creatures slowly, with his hands visible and empty. "I do not want to fight you," he said clearly. "If you are protecting something important, I will respect that. Perhaps we can find a way to coexist without bloodshed." Lisa understood that the scientific problems she faced were not just about finding correct answers, but about considering the moral implications of each discovery. She began to factor ethical considerations into her calculations and found that the equations became solvable when she included the welfare of all sentient life. Sam stopped trying to fix individual systems and instead began to work with the ship's underlying intelligence. He realized that the vessel itself was trying to teach him a new way of thinking about technology as partnership rather than domination. As each team member progressed in their individual trials, the ship began to respond. By bringing them back together, their platforms reconverged in the central chamber where Guardian was waiting for them. "You have each shown growth and understanding," Guardian announced. "But the final trial requires you to combine your individual strengths into something greater than the sum of its parts. The approaching fleets will arrive soon, and you must decide the fate of precursor knowledge." The walls around them became transparent, and Jake could see the approaching alien fleets growing larger on the displays. Dozens of ships from different species were converging on their position, and their intentions were clearly hostile. The largest group belonged to the hegemony, with their dark, angular warships bristling with weapons, while the Trade Consortium's sleep vessels moved in perfect formation nearby. "The moment of final choice has arrived," Guardian announced as the central chamber expanded to accommodate additional displays and control surfaces. "Three paths lie before you, and the decision you make will determine not only humanity's future, but the fate of all life in this galaxy." Jake studied the tactical information flowing across the screens. and felt the weight of impossible responsibility settling on his shoulders. What are options, Guardian? The chamber filled with holographic projections showing 3 different scenarios. The first showed the ancient ship's weapon systems activating and destroying the approaching fleets with devastating efficiency. The second showed the ship's self-destruct sequence, reducing the vessel and all its knowledge to cosmic dust. The third showed something Jake could not quite understand, involving multiple species working together in ways that seemed impossible. First, you may claim all precursor knowledge for humanity alone, Guardian explained. Our weapons are more powerful than anything the approaching fleets possess. We could eliminate all threats and give your species dominance over the entire galaxy within a generation. Tony studied the weapon displays and whistled softly. Captain, those energy signatures are off the charts. This ship could probably destroy entire star systems if it wanted to. With that kind of power, humanity would never have to fear any other species again. Lisa looked troubled as she examined the projections. But at what cost, Tony? If we use such overwhelming force against other species, we would become the very thing we have always fought against. We would become conquerors and tyrants instead of explorers and peacekeepers. The second path is destruction. Guardian continued. You could choose to prevent anyone from obtaining precursor knowledge by destroying this vessel and all its contents. The galaxy would remain as it is, with no single species gaining ultimate power over the others. Sam studied the self-destruct sequences and shook his head. Captain, that seems wasteful. All this knowledge and technology could help solve countless problems throughout the galaxy. Medical advances that could save billions of lives, energy systems that could end resource wars, forever transportation methods that could bring distant species together in peace. Jake looked at the third projection, which showed something far more complex. Multiple species were working together on massive projects. While the ancient ship served as some kind of mobile center for learning and cooperation, humans were present. But they were not ruling over others. Instead, they seemed to be facilitating and teaching. What is the third option, Guardian? Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The third path requires wisdom beyond what any previous species has shown, Guardian replied. You would become the guardians of precursor knowledge, sharing it freely with all species who prove themselves worthy through growth and wisdom rather than conquest and domination. The displays showed more details of this third scenario, and Jake could see that it would be far more difficult than either of the other options. Instead of simply taking power or destroying it, they would have to earn the trust and respect of countless species while carefully managing knowledge that could either elevate civilizations or destroy them. Captain, the first alien fleet will be in weapons range in less than 10 minutes, Tony reported as he monitored the tactical displays. The hegemony is demanding that we surrender the alien technology to them immediately, while the Trade Consortium is offering to purchase exclusive rights to any discoveries we have made. Lisa was analyzing communications from the approaching ships, and her expression was grim. Captain, I am also detecting signals from species I do not recognize. Some of them appear to be much older and more advanced than anything we have encountered before. This situation is becoming very complicated very quickly. Jake realized that Guardian was not just asking them to choose between 3 options, but was testing their ability to think beyond the obvious choices. Guardian, what if we chose a 4th path? What if there was a way to satisfy the legitimate concerns of the approaching fleets, while still protecting the knowledge from those who would misuse it? The ancient intelligence paused for a moment, and Jake could feel something like surprise emanating from the ship's systems. Explain your thinking, Jake Morrison. What 4th path do you see that we have not considered? Jake turned to his team and saw that they were all thinking along similar lines. Their individual trials had taught them valuable lessons, but the real test was applying those lessons together. We invite representatives from every fleet to come aboard and witness what we have learned. We show them that this knowledge cannot be taken by force or purchased with money, but must be earned through wisdom and growth. Tony nodded his agreement, and we make it clear that anyone who tries to claim the technology through violence or coercion will find themselves facing the combined opposition of every other species present. The ship's defensive capabilities should be enough to enforce that rule. Lisa added her own thoughts to the plan. We establish the ship as neutral territory where any species can come to learn and grow, but no single group can claim ownership. It becomes a traveling university and research center that benefits everyone rather than giving advantage to just one faction. Sam was studying the ship's technical capabilities, and his eyes lit up with understanding. Captain, this vessel has the ability to create smaller versions of itself. We could establish a network of knowledge-sharing stations throughout the galaxy, all connected to this central hub. No single point of failure, and no way for any one group to monopolize the technology. Guardian's response came with what sounded like approval and amazement. This fourth path you propose has never been attempted by any species we have encountered. The complexity of managing such a system would require unprecedented cooperation and wisdom. Are you certain humanity is ready for such responsibility? Jake looked at his team and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. Guardian, we may not be ready now, but we will learn and grow into the role. That is what humans do best. We adapt and overcome whatever challenges we face. The approaching fleets were now close enough that their individual ships could be seen clearly on the displays. Jake could see the aggressive posturing of the hegemony vessels and the calculating precision of the Trade Consortium formation. But he also noticed that several smaller groups were hanging back and observing rather than rushing forward to make demands. Tony opened a channel to all approaching vessels, Jake ordered. It is time to see if our plan will work. The communication system activated, and Jake found himself speaking to representatives of over 20 different species. Some were familiar faces from previous diplomatic encounters, while others were completely alien beings he had never seen before. This is Captain Jake Morrison, speaking on behalf of the guardian of this vessel, he began. We know why you have come, and we understand your concerns about the technology we have discovered. We propose a different solution than the ones you are expecting. The response was immediate and chaotic as multiple species tried to speak at once. The hegemony demanded immediate surrender of all alien technology, while the Trade Consortium offered increasingly large sums for exclusive access. Several other species made threats, while a few asked questions about humanity's intentions. Jake waited for the noise to die down before continuing. This ship and its knowledge belongs to no single species, including humanity. It will serve as a neutral ground where any civilization can come to learn and grow. But the knowledge cannot be taken by force or purchased with wealth. It must be earned through wisdom, demonstration of peaceful intentions, and commitment to the welfare of all sentient life. A new voice joined the communication channel, and Jake realized it belonged to one of the unknown species that had been hanging back and observing. Human Captain, this proposal interests us. We represent the Ascendant Alliance, a group of younger species who have been watching your actions with great attention. We would like to send representatives aboard your vessel to witness these trials you speak of. Guardian's voice spoke privately to Jake's team through their neural interface. The choice has been made, and the path is set. But remember that this is only the beginning. The real test will be proving that this system can work when faced with the challenges that are certain to come. The ancient ship began to reconfigure itself once again, and Jake realized they were about to welcome the first visitors to what would hopefully become a new kind of institution in galactic civilization. The ancient ship transformed itself into something magnificent and welcoming as representatives from dozens of species came aboard. The corridors widened and adapted to accommodate beings of different sizes and atmospheric needs, while the walls displayed universal symbols of peace and learning. Jake watched from the central chamber as the first groups of visitors made their way through the ship with expressions of wonder and caution. Guardian had accepted their proposal and was now working to implement the new system they had described. The ship's vast interior reorganized itself into research, laboratories, meeting halls, and cultural exchange centers, while maintaining the mysterious beauty that made it so impressive. Most importantly, the weapon systems remained hidden, but ready to enforce the neutrality that would make this dream possible. Captain, I am receiving communications from over 50 different species. Tony reported from his new position at the diplomatic station. Word is spreading fast through the galaxy, and everyone wants to know what is happening here. Some are curious, others are suspicious, and a few are definitely hostile. Lisa was working with a team of scientists from the Ascendant Alliance to establish protocols for sharing knowledge safely. Captain, we are making remarkable progress. These younger species understand what we are trying to accomplish, and they are eager to participate. Their enthusiasm is infectious. Jake smiled as he watched a group of crystalline beings from the Harmony Collective examining Precursor medical technology alongside human doctors and insectoid researchers from the Hive worlds. The cooperation that was already emerging gave him hope that their ambitious plan might actually succeed. Sam was deep in conversation with engineers from a dozen different species as they worked together to understand the ship's propulsion systems. Captain, the technical knowledge sharing is beyond anything I could have imagined. We are learning things that will advance every participating civilization by centuries. But not everyone was pleased with the new arrangement. The hegemony fleet maintained an aggressive posture outside the ship's defensive perimeter, while their representatives aboard made increasingly hostile demands. Their military commander, General Crux, was particularly vocal in his objections to the sharing arrangement. This is madness, Crux declared during one of the daily council meetings that had become a regular feature of life aboard the ship. Humans have stumbled upon the greatest military advantage in galactic history, and you are giving it away to potential enemies. When this knowledge is used against you, do not expect our protection. Jake listened patiently to the general's concerns. Before responding, General Crux, we understand your position, but we believe that security comes through cooperation rather than domination. The species that are learning alongside us today are far more likely to stand with us tomorrow than those we would conquer through superior firepower. The Trade Consortium had taken a different approach and was trying to find ways to profit from the new arrangement. Their chief negotiator, Marcus Webb, spent most of his time calculating the economic value of the technologies being shared and proposing complex licensing agreements. Captain Morrison, surely you can see the benefits of a more structured approach to this knowledge distribution. Webb argued during another council session. If we establish proper economic incentives, we can ensure that the most valuable technologies reach those who can use them most effectively. Lisa stepped forward to address Webb's concerns. Mr. Webb, the problem with treating knowledge as a commodity is that it inevitably creates inequality and conflict. When some species have access to advanced technology, while others do not, the result is usually war rather than prosperity. As the weeks passed, the ship became a bustling center of activity with beings from across the galaxy, working together on projects that would have been impossible for any single species to accomplish alone. The medical teams developed treatments for diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia, while the engineering groups designed new propulsion systems that would make interstellar travel safer and more efficient. Guardian observed all of this activity with what seemed like satisfaction as it spoke privately to Jake during one of their regular conversations. Your species continues to surprise us, Jake Morrison. The system you have created is working far better than we had dared to hope. But you should be aware that greater challenges are approaching. Jake had been expecting this news as their success attracted more attention throughout the galaxy. What kind of challenges are we talking about, Guardian? The walls around them displayed images of massive fleets moving through space toward their location. These were not the relatively small groups they had dealt with so far, but armadas representing entire galactic civilizations. Some belonged to ancient species that had remained hidden for millennia, while others represented alliances of worlds that saw the ship as either a threat or an opportunity. The older civilizations are beginning to take notice of what is happening here, Guardian explained. Some see your success as validation of their own peaceful philosophies, while others view it as a challenge to the established order. The next few months will determine whether your dream of universal cooperation can survive contact with galactic politics. Tony was already tracking the approaching fleets, and his expression was grim. Captain, some of these formations are larger than anything in our databases. If they decide to take the ship by force, I am not sure even Guardian's defensive systems will be enough to stop them. But Jake had learned to trust in the power of the system they had created, and he was not ready to abandon it in the face of new threats. Tony, we have something more powerful than weapons on our side. We have proof that cooperation works better than conflict. The first of the new arrivals was a fleet belonging to the Elder Council, a group of ancient species that had been observing galactic civilization for millions of years. Their ships were elegant and clearly advanced, but they approached peacefully and requested permission to send observers rather than making demands. Jake welcomed their representatives aboard and was surprised to find himself face to face with beings that resembled the precursors in many ways. They were tall and graceful with features that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them directly. Captain Morrison, their spokesperson Elder Thane, addressed him with a voice that seemed to resonate with ancient wisdom. We have watched your species with interest since you first left your home world. Your actions here confirm what we had hoped to see. You have chosen wisdom over power and cooperation over domination. The Elder Council's endorsement carried enormous weight throughout the galaxy, and their public support for the ship's mission encouraged other peaceful species to join the growing alliance. But it also intensified the opposition from those who preferred the old ways of competition and conflict. The hegemony began forming a coalition of military powers determined to either control or destroy the ship, while several criminal organizations saw opportunities to steal and sell advanced technologies on the black market. The situation was becoming increasingly complex and dangerous, but Jake and his team had learned valuable lessons during their trials, and they applied those lessons to each new challenge. They negotiated with reasonable opponents, offered compromises to those with legitimate concerns, and stood firm against those who sought to use force or coercion. Guardian continued to evolve and adapt, as well creating new safeguards to prevent the misuse of knowledge while expanding the ship's capacity to accommodate the growing number of species who wanted to participate. The ancient intelligence seemed to be learning from humanity's example and developing new approaches to its mission of nurturing galactic civilization. As Jake stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars, he reflected on how much had changed since they first discovered the derelict ship. What had begun as a simple survey mission had become something far greater than any of them could have imagined. Lisa joined him at the viewing port, and together they watched as ships from dozens of species worked together on joint projects in the space around the ancient vessel. Captain, do you think we made the right choice? Sometimes I wonder if we took on more responsibility than any one species should bear. Jake smiled as he watched a group of young beings from different worlds playing together in one of the ship's recreational areas. Their laughter was universal, and their friendship crossed every boundary of species culture and biology. Lisa, I think we did exactly what humans do best. We found a problem that seemed impossible to solve, and we refused to accept that impossibility. We adapted, we cooperated, and we created something new and better than what existed before. The ancient ship continued its journey through the galaxy, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of countless civilizations. Behind them lay the old ways of conflict and competition, while ahead stretched infinite possibilities for growth, understanding, and peace among the stars.